Hi Geoff, it's great to meet you again.
Likewise, Steve.
I've long been an admirer of your work, and as you know, of a number of your pieces. And one thing that absolutely astonished me when I read the Hunter Davies book, The Quarrymen, was the fact that you took the most famous and iconic photograph of John Lennon on the 6th of July 1957, the very day that he met Paul McCartney.
That's right, yeah.
I wonder if you tell us a bit about your early life in Liverpool.
Well, like you, Stephen, I used to live by the sea until I was 16. I used to live over in a place called Wallasey in the Wirral.
Mm-hmm.
At the age of 6, we moved to Liverpool proper, and I found it a wrench, to be honest, but it was surrounded by parks and greenery, and we had a biggish garden, you know. But I always find myself hankering after the sea, which I haven't lived by the sea since the age of 6, you know.
Mm.
Went to primary school from the age of 6 onwards, I guess, up till 11. And then we all did the 11 plus, what was called the 11 plus, at the age of 11. And I managed to get that through that, and I went to Quarrybank Grammar School, or high school, from the age of 11 till 16. And John Lennon was actually in the same class as me throughout the school.
Yes. Yes, I can see, Geoff, I can see this famous iconic photograph in front of me here, and it's absolutely striking. And I think you told me one time a friend of yours, Rod Davis, he actually played in the band. He was playing that day.
He's actually behind John with his head down, looking kind of studious, playing, which he was,
yes,
playing banjo.
Yes.
And then I can take you through the photograph if you like.
Sure, yeah.
Person by person. Oh. So on the extreme left, you have Eric Griffiths.
Yes.
Who was in the same class, sadly died a few years ago. The drummer, whom you can barely see, he did not go to Quarrybank, Colin Hanton. Rod Davis with his head down playing banjo. John, of course. John's best friend, Pete Shotton. He and I used to go to the cinema together, the Saturday matinee, stuff like that. Pete died a few years ago, unfortunately. This guy has sort of taken over as the lead singer of the new reformed Quarrymen. A lot of people wouldn't know this. Rod reformed the Quarrymen after 40 years of not playing together in, let me try and get the dates right now, 97, does that sound right?
That would sound like 50, 40 years. 40 years, yes.
Yeah. So this guy is quite a good singer. Len Gary didn't go to Quarrybank. So three of these guys, 3 of these 6 Quarrymen are actually no longer with us, you know. But the 3 remaining ones have formed John Lennon's original Quarrymen, if you like.
Yes.
Plus a keyboard player called John Lowe, or John Duff Lowe.
Yes.
And this photograph was taken, as you said, 6th of July 1957 at our local garden fete in Woolton Village, Liverpool. And it was St. Peter's Church. It was they're actually on top of a lorry. You can't really see that there. But they're actually playing on the top of the lorry, and they're surrounded by these kids, brownies, etc. There's 18 people in that photograph, which still amazes me. And if you saw the camera that I used, you wouldn't believe it, because it was so basic and so primitive. And I got it for my 16th birthday. I'd only had it for a few weeks. But it's kind of a miracle that you can see all 6 Quarrymen, plus all the kids, you know, and you know, it's black and white, and it's got the shades of grey in between, and you know, it's been reproduced so many times, you know. And I've actually tried doing a similar thing more recently with much better equipment, and couldn't get near it, you know. It's just a bit of a fluke, if you like, you know.
Yes. Oh, it's a seminal moment. In
little label on the back, by the way. The day John met Paul, etc. It gives a little story on the back.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely, Jack. So, like when When you say did you study art in school, or your interest in art, how would that have come about?
Yeah, actually, I used to sit next to John in the art classes. One of the few things we were good at. We weren't very academic. We were in the C stream, so art was our thing, you know.
What would have been your main interests in art at that stage? Would you have just done art for the sake of doing it, or was it something that you really enjoyed doing?
I always enjoyed drawing and painting, and you know, the way kids ask each other, what are you going to do when you leave school?
Sure.
I would always say without hesitation, I'm going to be an artist, or I want to be an artist. Also, it did actually eventually come true, although, as you said, I went through the printing trade first.
Would that have been to appease your parents, or
I suppose partly, yeah, because it was considered quite a good job in those days. You had to train for it. I did 6 years as an apprentice, lithographic printer. In my early 20s, I suppose that started.
Yeah, and would the I remember you said before that the college you studied in was next door to the college that John was going to as well, so there was still an affinity there that you were still studying and doing art. So I mean, would you have taken it that you're doing the printing, but yes, I really am going to, this is a fallback, this is something to have in the back pocket, but I want to be an artist?
I don't know. You see, I got pretty much into being a printer. You know, the money was good. It was interesting. It was demanding as well. But it actually wasn't until I came to Ireland that I decided to leave the printing trade in order to paint full time. You know.
I noted in 1968 you came to Ireland.
Summer of '68.
Summer of '68. What prompted you to come to Ireland?
Came for a job as a printer. More money, more experience. Printers in those days used to travel quite a lot, and the more you travel, the better you got, hopefully, and the more money you could command, you know. So, and sort of wanting to get out of Liverpool, at least for a while, you know.
And I've seen that you exhibited in Gerald Davis gallery in the early '70s. And what was the art scene like in Dublin in those days? In Dublin specifically.
It was more bohemian, and the Dandelion Market came along in 1970, May of 1970, changed a lot of people's lives.
Where was that,
including mine? It was actually in Bagot Court off Lower Bagot Street.
Okay.
Under an archway. A lot of people think it was in Stephen's Green. It ended up in Stephen's Green. That was actually the third venue.
Okay.
So it moved from Bagot Court, was there for about a year, and then it moved to Lower Leicester Street, a car park in Lower Leicester Street. Yeah, not many people know this. And then finally settled in Stephen's Green, where I think it closed down sometime in the 80s.
Would I be correct in thinking you had a gallery within a gallery stall in the Dandelion Market where you'd actually sell and display your work? Is that right?
Yeah. You'd have basically a wooden table,
right,
which was set up for you usually, and you'd be paying a certain amount of rent and
And there was another comment I read that you had said. Was that you wanted your art to reach people who normally don't go to galleries. Why is that important to you?
I just like the idea of getting people started, because I suppose in those days galleries were much more elitist, and even to this day they tend to be a bit like that, I would say. So I just... it was actually people who didn't have a lot of money that sort of kept me going. Yeah.
Your connection to the Beatles was re-established when you were involved in the Amnesty International exhibition, and you met up with Yoko Ono. I know it's gossipy. What was she like, and how did you get on?
God, your recall is great. I actually met her at the Late Show. Sort of behind the scenes, if you like. I didn't actually. We were in the green room, but I met her. She was like a little bird. Okay. she shook my hand 3 times. I gave her a 10x8 of the photograph, which is supposed to be one of her favourite photographs of John, you know.
Yes.
Possibly Beatle photographs in general, I don't know. It was an interesting meeting her.
I would love to meet her to talk about the Fluxus art movement and to ask her, did she really take old George's chocolate digestive biscuits on the get back set? You know, I mean, I would love to have met her, because I think yes, that there's a lot of. It's just nice to hear that she sounded like a really nice person when you met her. So I think that's really good. Geoff, how have your art practices changed over the years, the way you create your art? Or have they?
Not a great deal, I wouldn't say, except I'm less prolific than I used to be.
Okay.
I'm still sort of ticking over, you know. At the moment I'm doing fairly small work, but I've kept the same technique, which I sort of developed through being a printer, using oil-based inks on board. So I've kind of kept to that, you know, over the years. I wouldn't say things have changed that much, really.
Right. And this is interesting in regards to the technique. What is the technique you employ for creating your art?
I tend to use 3 colours, either yellow, red and blue, lemon yellow, magenta red, cyan blue, or latterly yellow, brown and blue. And I sort of push them around in different ways, you know. I use like a knife, brushes, roller, pieces of cloth, whatever. Fairly flat technique. In the old days I used to use the ink more thickly. Nowadays I probably use it a bit more thinly.
Yes.
There's just something about them that I like, you know, the quick drying and just a certain quality that I've always liked about the technique.
Well, it's definitely unique. I mean, your work. I mean, your work is instantly recognisable from the moment you can see it. And so, anyway, I think okay, I'm going to be going on to the next question. Yeah, is that Geoff? Have you any samples of work you're currently working on now that we could look at, or any examples of your work we could look at?
Yeah, I could get you the famous 8x5 box. Right. Actually, I didn't think to have it in here. It was an obvious thing to do.
Box here, no?
Yeah, that's not the one. Actually, those, Stephen, now you mention it, the 3 top ones are the ones that are in the Blue Light pub.
Okay.
Except they're enlarged as prints. So this one, treetop. This one, cottage in close-up. And this one of my favourite abstracts.
Yes. Is this part of your decrease series? Is it?
Yeah, increases. Yeah. Gosh, you have a great memory. Yeah. Sort of bending the board almost in a random way.
Yes.
Yeah. So things start happening. The painting starts to produce itself, if you like.
I suppose really what I'm thinking now is that if you've got current works that we can see now, and maybe you can talk us through it a little bit, and then tell us where we can see these works, or if you've any exhibitions coming up then. Okay, you want to get the box then? Yes.
Okay, do that. 8x5 box.
Right.
And this has, I don't know if you want to have a look at any particular place.
And these contain then your originals.
Yeah, these are all original, apart from this one, the Lady in Red.
And these original, that's very striking.
Now these are on recycled board, which is a fairly recent innovation.
And all inscribed on the back then as well.
Yeah, I tend to put something on the back. Sometimes they're painted on the backs as well, just to take the rawness out of it.
And would you make many prints of your work then, Geoff?
No, but it's a current preoccupation where I would love to do that.
Yes.
I'd love to put out the 16 by 20s as prints, possibly even giclée prints.
What type of print is a giclée print?
It's It's become very, very trendy and can be very expensive actually on the international art market, where you get it's supposed to give a very, very good reproduction and keep the lightness of the colours, etc., etc.
Giclée, it's a French word.
Yeah. It means spurt or something like that. Something to do with the way that the print is done.
Okay.
Giclee with an accent over the first E, I think.
Right. And so, as regards to seeing your work, then, where you mentioned the blue light? Then is it the?
Yeah, actually, the ones on top. Sorry, what I should have said.
Yeah.
Beg your pardon. These would be more recent. This one, and this one.
Right.
That's sort of where I'm at the moment, using yellow, brown, and blue.
And so people, if they want to go and see your work, if they went to the Blue Light pub, they can see these.
They can see them up there. Yeah. I'm not exhibiting a great deal at the moment,
yes.
But for the last 2 or 3 years, I've sort of taken the back seat. But I feel I'm sort of beginning to start again. I can sort of feel it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
No, we're nearly at the end of this interrogation. So I know music is very important for you, Geoff. How do you feel it impacts on your work, or does it impact on your work?
Well, that's an interesting one, because for me, the art and the music have always sort of overlapped.
Right.
And I suppose the best example of that was when I used to play up in the Blue Light, which is gone, by the way. We haven't played there for a while. The Blue Light is still there, but Deja Blue, which we went under, is no longer exists. But I was able to do a little bit of promoting, plus I'd enjoy the music, and it was just to be able to combine the two. Same with McLaughlin's to a lesser extent,
Yes.
And McLaughlin's is also gone, by the way. We haven't done that for the last gig. Last time we played in McLaughlin's was March the 5th, 2020, and then everything went bananas, And I can remember shaking hands with Mossy. I don't know if you remember Mossy. He was the guitar player, And I was thinking, should we be shaking hands, And wow, was I right, Because
yes,
it just went crazy after that,
So, I know you're a main blues harp player. I've seen you in McLaughlin's playing with your band. So is the band going to get together again this week?
I was talking to Joe today. Joe's the main man. I don't know if you remember, who he was there every week. I would be there every few weeks, because he had all these musicians lined up,
Yes.
And he's doing a bit of playing, but as far as I know, he's not actually doing a weekly gig.
Right.
Right. But he was actually playing with a guy called Fran Byrne, who was the drummer with a band called Ace, and they had one hit.
How long has this been going?
Well done. Not many people know that one, Stephen.
Jeepers.
Well done. And do you know what he's playing now? You wouldn't guess. He's playing the accordion,
No way.
To go from being a drummer in a rock band to a tranny accordion player.
That's fantastic.
That's quite a shift, but he's a lovely guy. He actually recommended me to that book, by the way, on the Beatles, which is called 1, 2, 3, 4.
Craig Grant, I've read it. Fantastic.
Have you?
Fantastic.
Good for you. And a week or two after Fran recommended that book to me, it arrived for my birthday, for my 80th birthday, in the post. A friend of Rosie's sent it to me, because her husband is a musician.
It's a marvelous. I think the Beatles are. There's so few degrees of separation from them to anything that you can view the whole 60s of the world through them.
Yeah.
And Craig Brown is such a witty, brilliant, insightful writer. And I thought, I don't want to take over things, but I thought what was interesting in it was his sort of reevaluation of Brian Epstein, that, because I think there was a lot of dissing going on. Brian made bad deals and Brian
No,
did this.
but Brian was a very devoted character.
And that book re-evaluates him. I think possibly helped get that statue erected in Liverpool as well.
Yes.
So
I used to buy 45s from Brian Epstein, by the way, in Nems music shop. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's just and I've on YouTube now. There's interviews with Brian Epstein, and like such a rational, reasonable person. And a guy that could see what was the trends and everything coming. It was just they're incredible to. They're almost like prophetic. His interviews on the internet and. It's just.
I never read his book. Did you?
That was ghosted by Derek.
The Cellar Full of Noise. Is that
Derek Taylor. Yeah, it was ghosted.
Amazingly enough, I don't think I ever read it. It should be on my list to read.
It's Derek Taylor just ghosted it for him. He was the PR man for the Beatles,
right.
And so it's like there's no controversy, there's nothing, and there's a lot of facts. I think it's a bit like, remember Hunter Davis's first book? I think he got the date wrong for the meeting of John and Paul the first. I think he was out by a year or something.
People have been doing that for decades at this stage. Yeah.
I know, but it's a great book. But
Hunter Davis wrote a book on the Quarrymen, by the way.
Yes.
Featuring my photograph on the cover. And just while we're on this Beatley stuff, I was at this in Wexford, which was sort of an audience with Pete Best, who was the original drummer, and I finally met him, and they'd actually used my photograph. Sort of printed in sepia, which is quite effective, even though it was never in sepia, and I'd actually written a description of the camera that I took for this guy Morris, who was he was the MC running the whole show, so that was kind of interesting to me.
Yes.
So I can now say I've met two of the Beatles, yes. John, of course, and Pete Best.
And what was your meeting with Pete Best like? How did he come across?
He's about the same age as me. He's going to be 80. Let me think. He's going to be 81. 24th of November, I think. But he actually does a Q&A, a question and answer thing with his younger brother, Rogue Best, who's a very interesting character. Well, that's ROAG. Very interesting. A little story you might enjoy. Rogue asks Pete, just give me a one-word answer, Pete. And I just say John, and Pete says genius. Paul, genius. George, I think I'd have to say genius. Ringo, drummer. So there's still a little bit of rancor there, or whatever you want to call it.
It's worked out for me in the end.
He seemed quite affable to me.
Yeah, he's in a good place then.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So that was good.
Yeah.
Now, I often thought, moving to, say, Paul McCartney, but I always thought Paul McCartney with this £1 billion wouldn't have been better in a way if they'd kept Apple going, throwing money at all these ventures and everything like that, lost it all, and ended up playing down the Dog and Duck, or up in the blue light playing some of their hits. Wouldn't that have been more like the lost treasure of Sierra Leone, is it, where they go and get the gold, Humphrey Bogart and get the gold out. Yeah. They come out and then there's this storm, and they lose their horses and this and that, and Humphrey Bogart's, all our gold is going, blah blah blah, and then Walter Houston says it's gone back into the mountain. That's where it came from. And I thought that if they could have got all that money from their pop in the 60s and then gone back, and then John could have been, and Paul could have been coming, we're going down to play another session, and maybe Geoff's coming over to take another photograph of us. And,
they were terribly naive, and they got all these hangers on. Well, you've read that book as well, and they just took everything they wanted, from Apple, from the Office, etc. No problem.
But that Apple, though, in terms of art, I suppose it's what initiated the meeting between Yoko and John, was it was hammering the nail into
and people tend to forget that Yoko was already an established artist in her own right,
Yes.
It wasn't a question of, she suddenly became famous because she met John. It was almost a little bit the other way around, where she apparently gave John access to the art world, which he didn't have already, like in the international art world.
And even like say a piece that like Revolution #9 that's like Stockhausen or something like that, there's probably more of her influence coming onto that.
Yeah.
And then the classical influence of Because on Abbey Road and stuff like that with her when she was playing Mozart and he took those chords.
Yeah.
I'd agree with you on that Geoff, that she had an input into it, into the Beatles.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting the Apple. Like there's authors like Charles Bukowski that I've read in his poetry that they would have got composers like John Tavener that they got through their Zapple label, and then the Indian music that George Harrison would have done as well. So I think I don't think Apple was all bad. I can see like there was
no, there was a lot of idealism behind it, wasn't there?
There was. Yeah, there was. Yeah. Well, listen, Geoff, thank you for your time, and it's been wonderful talking to you, and thanks for sharing your memories of Liverpool, your art, and your memories of growing up in Liverpool with John. And listen, Geoff, thanks a million. It's been lovely talking to you, and I wonder, would you play us out with one of your pieces on your harmonica, please?
Yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah.
Bam.
It's a little solo that I kind of developed over the years. Let's give it a go.
Slowly, yeah. It's really good.